Hey, how's it going? Greetings from the Hill of Beans. I've just walked all the way to the end and look down there. I found a new path, or they've built a new path, however you want to phrase that. Oh, Monopoly hotels and houses. What a weird thing to find on the ground. Oh my god. That is mental, by the way. What's that? Why are they up here? Is it a sign? Sign that I'm going to win at Monopoly? Maybe the premium bonds have came in. Ho ho! I don't know what that's about. It's the weirdest thing I've ever found, I think. And you were there to see it live. Anyway, yeah, I was talking about this new path. I was up here, Hogmanay. Today's the 3rd of Jan, so 4 days ago, and I didn't see it, but I think at that point, yeah, I was recording. I was recording in that direction, and then I turned around and went back. So that was my book bracketing video, or was it? I don't know. I'm feeling good. It's absolutely freezing up here. Must be like 2 degrees, but with a wind chill of ice on the ground. And it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I just took a wee 360 of the view from the end there, so I'll stick that in here and you can take a wee look. So I'm at 3.86 kilometres, elevation 290. It's been a good walk. I seem to have cleared my headache. I woke up this morning with a really bad headache, actually. I did have to take some painkillers. And it was interesting because what I wanted to talk today about was the Master of Margarita, which I'm running a read-along of right now. There's still plenty of time to catch up. I've only just finished chapter 2 myself, and yeah, that's why it's interesting, because in chapter 2 we follow Pontius Pilate as he has Jesus in front of him, or Yeshua as he's called in the book, and he's got a splitting headache, and it's so well written. Actually, this is what I was going to say, is that this is my 3rd time reading the book, or maybe the 4th, and I think I'm starting to get a wee bit obsessed. I spent this morning reading chapter 2 and writing about it and researching it, and it kind of blew my mind what I was learning. So I'll just do a recap. We'll make this a kind of recap of chapters 1 and 2. So beginning of chapter 1, we're at Patriarch's Ponds in Moscow. It's a spring day, getting towards evening, and we've got 2 characters. Berlioz, who is an editor, and a poet named Bezdomny, or homeless. And I mean, that's an interesting point in itself. As a translator and one who's very interested in that, I have 5 translations available to me, and I think in 4 of them he's called Bezdomny, and in only Pavirin Volokonsky is he called homeless. So they've translated his name rather than transliterated it, and I'm kind of against that. I mean, take it how you will, obviously your preferences are your own, but the other example that I've read about is Maxim Gorky, who, if you don't know, was another 20th century Russian novelist, and that wasn't his real name either, that was a pen name, and in Russian Gorky means bitter, like you would describe a lemon as being Gorky, and we don't call him Maxim Bitter, do we? But anyway, homeless, right, so he's a poet, and he's just written a poem about Jesus. He was commissioned to write a poem about Jesus by the editor, Berlioz. and they're having a conversation in the park, and Berlioz is like, yeah, that poem you've written, I don't like it. You've made Jesus appear to be too sympathetic and too real, and as we all know, Jesus wasn't real. So that's the discussion. Meanwhile, another character appears as if by magic, like Mr. Ben, the shopkeeper. And, no, Mr. Ben's not the shopkeeper. It's the shopkeeper who appears to Mr. Ben and takes him off on a fantasy journey. I wonder if that was influenced by Master Margarita. So this character appears and he's strangely dressed. He's got a walking stick with a poodle on the top. He's got one black eye and one green eye. And he overhears the conversation and he comes up and he says, couldn't help but overhear, but you're talking about Jesus. And they said, yeah. And from his accent, he appears to be foreign, this guy, but Berlioz and Bies Domney, they can't place him. Is he French? Is he English? Polish? It's hard to tell, but his Russian's very good. And he goes on to discuss Jesus, and he says, yeah, are you guys atheists by any chance? To which they respond, yes, indeed we are. So he's like, excellent, excellent. And he goes on to discuss some weird things, like he says he predicts the death of Berlioz, for one thing. Tells him that he's going to be killed by a Russian woman, a komsomolka, and he's going to die by decapitation. And Berlioz is like, aye, what are you talking about, you nut job? And he says, yeah, well, you know, the oil's already been spilled, it's unstoppable now. So he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So that's kind of the gist of that meeting. He gives them a card with his name, which is Voland, with a big letter W on the card. And he says, yeah, I've been brought here, I've been commissioned to come and discuss black magic, of which I am a practitioner, in fact, in which I am the world's superlative practitioner. So yeah, we've kind of established that this guy is weird, and do we know who he is yet? We don't really, so I won't say any more than that. At the end of the chapter, the sentence is something along the lines of white robes, and then it starts chapter 2, which begins with the same sentence. It's kind of a joining feature, which I quite like. But we're immediately whisked away to biblical times, to Pontius Pilate with a split and sore head, and to Yeshua Hanostri, his name is in this one. And we follow, it's quite a long chapter, we follow the story of Yeshua being brought in front of Pontius Pilate. He's been found guilty by the Lesser Sanhedrin of sedition, I guess you would say. He's been talking of the world of truth, a world without violence, a world where there's no power structure required because everyone loves one another, that kind of stuff. And he says there's a world where we don't need any Caesars or kings or hierarchy of power. So he's brought in because he's getting done for inciting rebellion, and he goes on to explain that no, he wasn't inciting rebellion at all, he was just trying to tell the truth, to bring about a world of truth. When I first read the book, I was like, what is all this about? Why is this in this novel? It makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. And at this point, of course you're going to think that, because you haven't had it explained to you yet what this is. So I'll explain it to you now, in case you're curious and wondering what the hell's going on. we haven't yet been introduced to the master or a Margarita, so you're like, yeah, they're coming. And you don't know, of course, who the master is and what he's doing. But it turns out the master's a novelist, and he's writing a story, and this is his story. He's writing the story of Yeshua and Pontius Pilate. So that's just a wee bit of information that might help you along, in case you're thinking, I'm going to DNF this. It's silly. So, yeah, the whole chapter, as it turns out, is kind of about cowardice and courage. In one scene we have a swallow flying in to the colonnade where the two are talking, Yeshua and Pontius Pilate. And at this point Pilate feels his headache dissipate, and he starts to feel that Yeshua is guilty of nothing more than what would you call it? Words. It's not sedition, it's not inciting rebellion, it's just talking of ideas, and it does say in the novel that he's guilty of nothing more than mental illness. So he decides that he's going to pardon him, or at least not pardon, but he's not going to ratify the death sentence. He's going to instead exile him from the city where, you know, his talk is, you know, dangerous, but not to the point of inciting riots. But he decides it's safer just to have him out of the city, so he exiles him. But then the swallow leaves, and he reads some more information about the sentencing and decides, actually, I will. So they have a long conversation, which I won't go into here, you can read about that. But at the end of the conversation he's like, yeah, I will sentence you to death, I'm going to ratify that decision after all. And from the research I've done, it turns out that this is to do with cowardice and the idea that speaking the truth about how one feels about things. So we learned that when the swallow came in, Pilate felt that forgiveness was possible, but the danger is that if he forgives Yeshua and then the emperor Caesar finds out about it, then Pilate himself could be disappeared or put to death. So that's kind of what it's about, which is as it was in Stalin's time in Russia when the novel was written. So, you know, Stalin was the emperor, so to speak. He would have underlings who were in charge of sentencing, and if the underlings hesitated or showed any kind of mercy, then the underlings themselves would be subject to punishment of some sort, which is actually what happened. I mean, if you think of Yezhov, for example, the head of the secret police, he was disappeared. A lot of Stalin's greatest friends and allies, back from when he took power, ended up being disappeared. So that's kind of what the satire is telling me, and I didn't know that when I was reading this weird story about Yeshua and Pontius Pilate nestled in amongst a novel about black magic and witches and talking cats. So there you go, that's me at the end of chapter 2. I'm going to go home, I'm going to research more. I found an excellent article on JSTOR, which turns out I have access to through my alumnus account from the University of St Andrews, where I did my undergraduate degree in Russian language and literature. So that's a terrific discovery for me, because JSTOR is full of great academic articles. This one's from the Journal of Slavic and Eastern European Studies, and it's a comparison really of 6 different translations. Right in my wheelhouse. And it's talking about the accessibility of some of the kind of Sovietisms of the original that might not translate for an English speaking audience because they don't have that kind of cultural background and knowledge. So I'm really interested to read that. I've got quite a few more tabs open in my browser. As I said, I'm feeling a wee bit obsessed, which is no bad thing. I'm really enjoying it. And if you're reading along with me, that's excellent. I hope you're enjoying it too. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. If I can answer them, I will. If I can't, I'll research it and see if I can. And thanks for watching. Enjoy the book. See you later.